To look at the social position of women throughout the 19th century, we can start by looking at the property law. Women in the 19th century were not allowed to own their own property until, at first in Great Britain in 1882, the law was passed to allow women to own their own property. This was one of the many restrictions placed on women, along with the divorce law. Women were only allowed to divorce until the latter half of the 19th century, and they were only allowed to divorce their spouses because of the presence of alcoholism and how their spouses were violent and also adultery. If women wanted to divorce their man, they'd have to present a case of adultery and additional cases against the man. However, if the man wanted to divorce the women, he would only need to present a case of adultery alone. As well, women were restricted with education. And women were not allowed to go to universities. In fact, it extended till 1914, which was one of the latest times they were allowed to attend. It began in 1860 with attending the University of Zurich in Switzerland, and many women didn't even attend university because they weren't allowed to attend secondary schools. As well, there were many new employment patterns for women. Women, because of the Second Industrial Revolution, were allowed many more jobs, including clerks and receptionists and many things like that. Because of the invention of typewriters and phones, women were allowed jobs like that. However, they weren't very high paying. Also, upon marriage and birth, many married women left their jobs, and because of this, jobs only targeted younger women. Although women were allowed jobs, the home life was still seen as the main priority for women, and when they had a child, which was typically around the age of 20 or 21, they would have to abandon their jobs to mainly care for their children. Another way that women were allowed to get jobs was the put-out system, which was originally in Germany. This gave jobs to around 80,000 women because they needed people to knit clothing and everything like that. However, the jobs given to women in clothing were less skilled jobs compared to other jobs that they were able to be given. As well, prostitution was a major topic and job that women had. As apart from now, prostitution was not regulated very well back in that time. Many women who were impoverished and who weren't given the opportunities to have jobs had to resort to prostitution. Most women were prostitutes from younger ages, such as 19, until they were 25. And prostitution usually was not in industrial areas and was only in poorer areas where there were only unskilled workers. After looking at these women, you can also look at women of the middle class. Women of the middle class's husbands' incomes usually were able to suffice for the family. Women of the middle class were able to enjoy the indulgences of fine china, clothing, and many other of the consumer advantages of this time. Women were also seen to play an important role in religion. The Roman Catholic Church urged women to take their children to Mass and to care about meatless Fridays and other events like that. The family size also shrunk in the 20th century because families were more concerned about spending money on consumer goods and other things like that with the family. With this, political feminism also developed, especially in Great Britain. A major topic of political feminism was suffrage. However, many women were skeptic towards this movement, and many did not join. Although women's suffrage was a major topic in Great Britain, it did not develop as fast in France and other countries like Germany as it did in Great Britain because it was much more enhanced in feminism and other liberal movements. In France and Germany, there were not many women who even supported these movements. In 1990, there were barely any women who supported these political feminist movements in France. In fact, there were only a handful. Whereas in Great Britain, people such as Mary Wollstonecraft, as early as 1792, were expressing their views on women's rights, suffrage, and other political feminist movements. These summarize the main topics about women's struggles throughout the 19th century and how their social positions began to change until World War I, but they were still discriminated against and were not given as many rights as men. Thank you.